Welcome back, game developers. Today we are going to talk about cutscenes, what they are, and how you can use them in your video games. We'll focus on 5 key elements of cutscenes and break down the code needed to create engaging, dramatic moments in your Construct 3 projects. So what is a cutscene? It's a moment that interrupts your game for a bit of story. Cutscenes can be short to make your game world feel unpredictable and alive, or they can be longer if you have a lot of story to tell.
Actual, repeat your last.
I'll say again, the Sun has American missiles.
All right, clear the room. Let's go, everybody out, now.
To see how music, camera movement, sound effects, character animations, and dialogue work together to create an engaging experience, let's analyze the opening in-game cutscene for Yoshi's Woolly World. Now that we've seen how the 5 elements work together to make a cutscene, let's break down each element and demonstrate how they work by building a simple cutscene. To add music to your game, you will first need to download some music. OpenGameArt.org is a great resource for free audio and art. Or you can purchase a music pack. Just Google music packs to find lots of options. WAV and FLAC are the recommended file types. However, MP3 files and a few other formats will work as well. Now that you've downloaded your music, it's time to import it into Construct. In your project window, scroll down to the folder titled Music. Right-click it and select Import Music. Next, select the tracks that you want to import, wait for them to encode, and then hit Import. You'll see that our songs are now in our project. Next, we need to add the audio object. Double-click your layout and scroll down to Audio and click Insert. You only need to do this once for your project. Now we can add some code to start some music. On my event sheet for my cutscene, I'll do Add an Event, System, and on Start of Layout. Then I'll add an action, Audio, and I will play one of my songs. So to get the camera to follow the player, you normally use the scroll to behavior. But if you want the camera to be able to break away from the player and move around on its own, you're going to need to create a camera sprite. So let's add a sprite. You can give it any color you want because it'll be invisible during the game. Name it camera. In its properties, scroll all the way down to the bottom and uncheck initially visible. Next, we're going to give it 3 behaviors. We'll give it the scroll to behavior, the pin behavior, and the move to behavior. The 2 most common ways for a cutscene to begin are interacting with an object or at the start of the layout. So first, I'll show you how to trigger a cutscene when the player collides with an object. So I'm on my layout here and I have my camera sprite, but I want the player to interact with an object and then start the cutscene. So I need the camera to be following the player. So I'm going to uncheck scroll to on my camera sprite so that it's not being used. And I'm going to make sure scroll to is turned on my player. Awesome. So the player is going to come walking from left to right, and then I think when they get to about right here, I'm going to have the cutscene start. So I'm going to need to make an object for the player to interact with. So I'm going to make an object called scene trigger, and this is just going to be a sprite. You can give it any color you like because during game it'll be invisible. And go ahead and name it scene trigger. And I'm going to give it an instance variable called ID. We'll use the instance variable to pick the correct scene trigger if there's more than one on the layout. Next, uncheck initially visible on your scene trigger sprite. Okay, now that my scene trigger is ready, let's start coding. Heading over to my cutscene event sheet, I'm going to add an event, and it will be when the player collides with our scene trigger. And if you have more than one scene trigger, you're going to need to pick it. So you can do that by comparing the instance variable. In this case, mine was set to 0, so we'll have this one set to 0. Okay, so when the player collides with my scene trigger, I want to make it so that the camera starts moving. Okay, add action, and the first thing we're going to do is we're going to freeze the player where they are. So we have to disable their ability to move. So I'm going to come down to platform, and I'm going to set it to be disabled. And then we're going to wait just a fraction of a second, 0.1 seconds. And then we're going to change the player's animation to their idle animation. Next, we're going to move the camera to be at the same location as the player. So we're going to use set position to another object, and we will set it to our player's position. Then we're going to turn on scroll to, and we'll turn scroll to off of the player. So camera, scroll to enabled, and then player, scroll to disabled. Now in this scene, I want the screen to shake like there's an earthquake happening. So I can actually use the scroll to behavior to create a shake. So add an action, camera, and then down to scroll to, we have shake. And we're gonna shake it for 1.5 seconds. We'll then wait 1.5 seconds. And then we're going to move the camera to the top of the building where we will reveal that there's another character about to fall. So add action, camera, and then move to. Now we need to know the location of where it's going to move to. So let's head back to our layout. And we want the camera to move to right about here. So we can see in the bottom right-hand corner, we can see that coordinate, 303, 262. All right, and let's give this a try. Awesome, it's working. Now, I want the music to change once my cutscene starts. So I'm going to add another action, audio, and I'm going to fade my first song. Put that at the top, and then I'm going to start my next song. Audio, play, and we'll set this one to be looping, and we'll move that right up to the top. All right, let's give that a try. All right, starting to come together. All right, so I have my second character right here, this little person they're going to be hanging onto the side there. Let's see what that looks like. Okay, so we can see that we can already see the character there, and I don't want that. I want to zoom in on just the character here, so that way when we see the character dangling off the building, it's more of a surprise. So we're going to create a zoom function. So to do that, I'm going to go to my cutscene event sheet, and I'm going to add a new function called zoom. And I'm going to give it a parameter, and that parameter is the end zoom, right? So this is where we're ending up, and it'll be a number. All right, and we're going to right click, and we're going to add a sub event, and this will be a loop. And we're going to loop through all of our layers except for our HUD layer. So that would be layer 0 through layer 4. So my start index will be 0 and my end index will be 4. And the action is going to be system. We're going to come down to set layer scale, and the layer will be our loop index, and our scale will be the name of our parameter, end zoom. Okay, so when we call this function, it's going to loop through all of our layers and it's going to change their scale. So we can essentially create a zoom. So I want to zoom in at the very beginning of my cutscene. So up in my onStart of layout event, I'm going to add an action, and I'm going to add a function call, and we're going to zoom in to 1.5. Now a large number greater than 1 will zoom in, and a small number less than 1 will zoom out. All right, let's see what that looks like. Nice. All right, so our camera moved a little higher than we needed it to, so let's adjust that. Going back to our cutscene, we want the camera to move to this character, which I've called NPC. So in my move to action here, we're actually going to move it to the NPC's X coordinate and the NPC's Y coordinate. All right, let's check that out. All right, looks good. But this fade is going a little too slow, so let's adjust that to maybe have it fade out over 1 second. Let's see what that looks like. Nice. All right, next I want to zoom the camera in a little bit closer on our hanging player here, and then we'll snap the camera back to the player. So on our event sheet, we will add an action, and we'll add a wait command. We'll wait for 4 seconds, and then we will call our zoom function again. We'll zoom into 2.3, and then we'll wait another 2 seconds, and then we're going to move our camera. So add action, camera, and then set position to another object, and we'll set it to the player's position. All right, let's give that a try. Nice. Sound effects should be used to draw attention to important actions within the scene. In this scene from Mario Odyssey, notice which sounds the developer decided to include. To add sound effects to your game, you will first need to download some sounds. OpenGameArt.org is a great resource, or you can purchase an audio pack. Just Google sound effects pack to find lots of options. Once you've downloaded your sounds, you'll scroll down in your project window down to the Sounds folder, right-click it, and select Import Sounds. Next, choose the sounds that you want to import. Wait for them to encode, and then hit import. And you can see now we have all of our sounds ready to go in our project. Let's now add some sounds to our cutscene. So first I want to add some background ambience. So on my onStart of layout, I'm going to add another action, audio, play, and I'm going to play my wind sound, set to looping. Move that to the top. Next, in my music code here, I'm going to add a tag, and I'm going to call this M for music. That way, when we come down here to fade, I can fade just the song and not my wind sound effects as well. All right, next we're going to add a sound effect for when the screen shakes right here, and it's going to be an earthquake sound. So add action, audio, play, and we're going to play one of our earthquake sounds. Move that up to the right spot. There we go. Next, I want to play a sound when the camera zooms in on our character that's dangling from the building. So I'm going to add another action, audio, play, and then I'm going to choose my sound. Move that up. Then we're going to play another sound when the camera snaps back to our hero. Add action, audio, play. So when we first see our character hanging from the building, I'm going to play another sound there. Audio, play. Have that right up here. Let's see what that looks like. Awesome. Animating your character during a cutscene requires disabling your player's ability to control the character and controlling their movement with code. For a detailed tutorial on how to create a system to animate your characters, check out our earlier video on creating a puppet system for your cutscenes. The link is in the description below. So, using the functions created with our puppet system, we can animate our characters. So instead of having our character collide with the scene trigger, we're going to have this start at the beginning of the layout so you can see what that looks like. That means we're going to have to move these three events down to our OnStar of Layout event. Awesome. So let's add a short wait to the very beginning of our cutscene, say 2 seconds, and then we'll have the wait start right after our zoom. Okay, next I need to include my puppet event sheet and turn on the cutscene movement for my player. So this is just another platform behavior that I've renamed cutscene movement. And we'll go ahead and set that to be enabled. And that happens right after we disable its regular platform movement. Now that its cutscene movement is enabled, we can use our functions to start moving them around. So I'm going to have the character move to the right for 2 seconds. And then we are going to wait for 2 seconds while that movement completes. Let's see what that looks like. All right, it's looking good so far, but our music started too soon. So our music should start with the camera shake. So I'm going to move these 2 lines of code down to where our camera shakes. Here we go. And then at the end here, when the camera comes back to the player, I'm going to have the player jump and then run into the building. So we need to add another action, a function, moving jump. We'll have our player jump for 1 second. Then we'll have a short wait. And then we'll have them run to the right. So functions, move to the right, and we'll have that be for 2 seconds. And then we'll add another wait command for 2 seconds. And then we'll have a fade at the end here, but let's take a look and see what it looks like now. All right, our character ran a little too far, so we're going to change this moving right. I'm going to change that to 1 second, and we'll have our wait be 1 second. All right, let's take a look now. Awesome. There we go. That's what we wanted to see. Cool. Dialogue during cutscenes can be used to represent characters talking on screen or as a narrative voice, providing information to the player. Dialogue can be silent, fully voiced, or use a made-up language. For a detailed tutorial on how to add a dialogue system to your game, check out our previous video on creating a dialogue system. The link is in the description below. Using our system, we can add even more to our cutscene. To add dialogue to our cutscene using our dialogue system, we use this function to create our text and background. And then we use these 2 actions to control whether or not we're going to finish the text when they press space, or if we're going to send the next signal so that way the cutscene can continue moving. So coming back to our cutscene event sheet, we will include our dialogue event sheet, and then we can use our functions to display some dialogue. So I'm going to have some dialogue displayed when the earthquake first happens. So we'll add an action, function, dialogue, and we're going to have it say, help. And we're going to move that to right after our camera move and our zoom. And then we are going to wait for signal. And that signal is the word next. So all of our cutscene will play out until we hit this part right here. And then it's going to display some dialogue, and then it's going to wait for the user to press the space key. Once they do, it will then snap the camera back to the player, where we will display some more dialogue. We'll have it say, I'm coming. And then again, another wait for signal. And that signal is the word next. And then he's going to run into the house. Cool. Let's see what that looks like. All right, it's waiting for our signal. It's looking good, but we want that dialog to be destroyed after the user presses the space key. So we're going to add another action, function and destroy dialog, and that will happen after both of our wait for signals. So we'll have it happen there, and then we'll have it happen down here too. All right, see what that looks like. Awesome. All that's left now is to add a fade to black and take the player to the next level. So to make a fade to black, what you're going to do is you're going to add a sprite and you will give it the black color. Set its origin point to the top left corner. So that would be a coordinate of 0, 0. Make it the same size as your viewport and then give it the fade behavior. Now, if you want to fade to black, you give it a fade in time and get rid of the fade out. If you want to fade from black, then you obviously reverse it like that. Okay, but I want to fade to black. So we're going to put this back here. There we go. Go ahead and name it fade to black. All right, now on our event sheet, all we have to do is create our object on our HUD layer when it's time to use it. So create object, fade to black. This is going to be on our HUD layer and the coordinate is 0, 0. All right, let's see what that looks like. We want that fade to come in a little bit quicker, so I'm just going to get rid of that wait. And now let's see. Perfect. All that's left now is to add an action and take the player to whatever the next layout is going to be. Well, that's it. If you learned something new today, smash that like button and subscribe. If you want to see me turn this into an actual game, drop a comment down below with your ideas. Thanks for watching and have a great day.